And welcome back to another episode of the Idiots Football Show. Sorry it's been a little while since we've been with you guys. We had a couple hiccups in the road. Between Christmas and finals, just really getting everything wrapped up, making sure that we're in the best spot we can be in before I try to give you another phenomenal episode here. So, we just want to thank you so much for joining us today. I have a new guest, a new idiot on our show, my good buddy Kyle. Kyle, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me today, Zach.
Thank you for coming on. Can't beat it, can't beat it. So, we're just gonna get right into it. I'm gonna tell you how we're gonna do this breakdown today, and we'll get it going. So, we're gonna start with the Eagles Cowboys game. We're gonna talk a little bit about what's going on behind the scenes of the NFL. Couple semi major developments in the league. We'll go over those, and then we're gonna hit the playoff picture pretty hard. We're not really gonna be talking about the top end teams here. That's not really our main concern. We're really gonna be looking at who's looking to get in, who's looking to maintain their spot, who might fall out of the playoffs in these next few weeks. So it's really going to be interesting coming up here, seeing how everything's going to shake and bake, and we're gonna guess roll right into it. So first we're gonna start off with our Eagles Cowboys game because my buddy Kyle is actually a Dallas Cowboys fan. As much as I hate the Cowboys, I got to give them a lot of credit in this game. They hung up 40 points on our head. They really made sure that they said, hey, we know you have a top defense in the league, but you know what? We don't give a shit. We're really going to make sure that we know that, as the Dallas Cowboys have really shown this season, that they have an effective offense and they're able to continually score and do the things they need to do regardless of situation. Now, I really do think that this was probably one of the better games of the entire weekend slate. We got to see an Eagles team without Jalen Hurts really play pretty well on offense. Obviously they lost the turnover battle, and I think that's really what caused them to kind of lose this game. But you know, the Eagles, I think they have something special here, something cooking, and I was a big fan of this game. I think it showed a lot of grit, showed a lot about where this team as a whole is at, and how they're gonna kind of keep moving forward, especially as they get towards the playoffs. As this definitely was a playoff preview, granted without our starting quarterback. But I'm very excited to see what's gonna be happening here. So, what I really want to talk about during this Eagles Cowboys game is how I think Gardner Minshew, he played great. He did a good job. He did all you could ask him to do. He threw for over 300 yards. He had two touchdowns. He looked efficient. Now, my one big issue is that he did have a couple turnovers, some sloppy handoffs. Didn't really look the most efficient. But what can you expect from a guy who hasn't played in an actual live football game in, I want to say, about two years, right? It's been a little while.
It really has been, and I think that was a big factor in those two fumbles on the handoffs. Without those fumbles, I think the Eagles easily win this game, even with Gardner Minshew, and that surprised me a little bit as I took the Cowboys minus 4.5 in the game, and it somehow hit in the end. But
Hey,
throughout
that
that
works.
entire game, that was not looking great for us. And give credits to the Eagles, even without Jalen Hurts, to still be able to put up a great fight against one of the better teams in the NFC.
Oh no, 100%, 100%. It was a great game all around. We saw an early pick six from what's it called, from Josh Sweat. That was a phenomenal thing for me to get to watch. I love anytime we can really rack on our Cowboys here, just because they're just the team I desperately despise. I cannot stand the Dallas Cowboys. But you know what? I got to give credit to where credit is due. As the Dallas Cowboys, they took care of business. They played a great game against Philadelphia in Philadelphia. Right? Was that in Philadelphia, or was that in Jerry's World?
This was in Jerry's world this
Oh, that
time.
was in Jerry's World. My apologies. They played a great game in Jerry's World. And honestly, I'm just happy I got to see a nice little playoff preview. And it was a nice way to kind of get the season moving, really see what this Eagles team is built like late in the season. With all their injuries and everything. Now we did see Lane Johnson go out late in that game. We saw him pick up an abdominal injury. So luckily for the Eagles, he's going to avoid surgery. We should see him back come playoff time. Another guy we might see come back come playoff time is a guy who's been out for a couple weeks with a kidney injury because he hit a guy so goddamn hard he busted his own kidney. Was C.J. Gardner Johnson. Now this is a guy who was leading the league when he got hurt in interceptions. He's a very efficient ball hawk. He's really able to help secure that Eagles secondary and really make them one of the top units in the league like they've been all season. Now, I have a big issue with Darius Slay. We saw him play probably the worst game he's played all season. He's getting routed by Ty. He's getting routed by Gallup. He's getting routed by CD. I mean, for all I care, CD is putting his CD nuts on his goddamn face. It was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous. But you know what? I think that's just a bump in the road for Slay. We saw Bradbury play an okay game. I think this is definitely a nice little wake up call for the Eagles secondary and what they really need to do going forward, especially if CJ Gardner Johnson isn't going to be able to return come playoff time.
And going back to Darius Slay on that T.Y. Hilton catch, I don't think that was his fault at all. I think that goes back to the coaching staff, whoever called a cover two on that play. Why on 3rd and 30 you're calling a cover two, I really don't know, if you're just expecting a check down or something, but that wasn't Slay's fault. That was just a
bad play call.
Bad play call. That's what
happens.
it comes down to. And in this game, I think the big takeaway for the Cowboys side of it is Dak Prescott. He's easily having the worst season of his career, and I'm not sure if that's because his thumb isn't completely healed, but even his decision making with that Josh Sweat pick six, that ball, we had Jake Ferguson wide open in the flat. It was a nice, easy lob pass for a first down, and he threw it right into the hands of Josh Sweat. And
I think he just undersized him. I don't know what he did. He all he had to do was throw a nice little lollipop over the top, and he would have had it. But he practically threw it right between his wickets, and it's like, dude, how do you not catch that?
Exactly.
He made it almost almost impossible to not catch for the lineman.
And he made that too easy. But another point with Dak here in this game is it's been week after week now where he starts off bad. He's had a lot of second quarter interceptions this year. But the good takeaway about Dak is that he hasn't given up in these games. And in every one of these past 3 games against the Texans, the Jaguars, and now the Eagles, he's come back in the fourth quarter and he's played phenomenal football in the fourth quarter when you need it the most. So that gives me hope as a Cowboys fan for the playoffs.
No, dude, that's what it's all about. You get to really see Dak starting to get it rolling, really, looking better for the playoffs. Obviously, he's made a few mistakes, but especially this Dallas Cowboys team. They're very well built. They're built for the playoffs, and no matter what they do, who they play, I think it's going to be an exciting game. I think they're going to be definitely one of the tougher teams in the whole playoff bracket come this playoffs. So. Do you have anything else you'd like to talk about in this Eagles Cowboys game?
Yeah, the only other thing about the Cowboys is the secondary with Brown going down for the season. That was a big loss. We have a lot of young players in the secondary now, but it's great to see that Deron Bland is coming to life, and he was a 5th-round rookie. Not much expected from him this year, and he's already got 5 interceptions. Now, he's not going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. That's already locked up by Sauce Gardner, but he is moving up the betting list, so that is nice to see that we do have something for the future.
Of course, you always like to see your guys moving up, doing big things, especially in their rookie season. They got a lot more playoff life to go. Not even playoff life, a lot more NFL life to go. Really to see that person kind of grow and expand their game. It's always a great thing to see. So, obviously we had a great game in the Eagles Cowboys game. We're not going to cover every game here today, but we are going to move on to a couple of the bigger headlines that we saw come up this week and really what that means going forward for some of these situations. So obviously I'm going to start off with a quick one. We saw Nathaniel Hackett, the head coach of the Denver Broncos, promptly get fired after that abysmal game on Christmas. Oh my God, I can't believe they were even allowed to play on Christmas. The fact that they did that, you know what they put the fucking Grinch out there and they said, hey, we need you to make the playoff schedule or the Christmas game schedule and put the worst possible games on that day. It was unbelievable, the games on that day. Horrible.
I mean, I completely disagree with that, though, because start of the season, you have Russell Wilson coming out, and he's one of the most bet people to win the Super Bowl. You got Matt Stafford coming off a Super Bowl win. On paper, preseason, that looks like a great game. And you even go to the Tampa Bay game against Arizona. On paper before the season, that looked like 2 playoff teams, too. So I think that it just was an unfortunate turn of events on Christmas because we did see some really bad football.
My thing is, I really wish they flexed any other game into this spot. Like, literally any other game into this spot. It would have been great.
Oh, I agree. Like, Dallas, Philly, that should have been flexed. And I'm not sure if they can flex a Saturday game to a Sunday, but that should be definitely a rule in the future that on a national holiday like that to put the best games on for the people.
Yeah, because, come on, it's Christmas. We want to see the best games. We want to, the NFL is trying to give us a Christmas present here, and you're really, they did everything in seemingly their power to not be able to truly deliver on, something that could have been absolutely unbelievable. There's a couple unbelievable games they could have had on Christmas and really, shored up that spot for the future. But so be it. It happens. But just to return back to where we were going, obviously we saw Nathaniel Hackett get fired, and that was obviously, a very reasonable firing. At this point, I'm surprised it hasn't come sooner. We've seen this guy, week in, week out, just be truly ineffective. They have one of the best defenses in the league. and that's not because of Nathaniel Hackett. They've constructed a great defense. Their defensive coordinator has a great game plan. We really haven't seen Nathaniel Hackett contribute too much. We've seen, Russell Wilson really just be an absolute bum this season, and nothing short of a bum. So, something had to happen, something had to give. Excuse me. And I'm glad it finally happened.
We did see him lose games though earlier in this year, and that was a big red flag to me, especially in the Denver-Seattle game, where with the clock management, he didn't call a timeout with a minute left. He burned 30 seconds off the clock, and he settled for a 67-yard field goal to try to win the game, and he could have easily got 5 more yards there. And the next, in the same game, after the game, he hired a clock management coach for him to help him manage the clock better. And I don't understand how you become an NFL head coach and you don't have any clock management.
That's a huge red flag, and the fact that he was able to make it through the hiring process, being such a high end guy, it kind of shows some of the flaws even in that hiring system. But obviously that's not a big point for today, so we'll glide past that. I figured I should mention it just because of how bad this guy has been for the Denver Broncos this season. So now we're gonna move on to the Miami Dolphins. Really, really more about Tua, more Tua conversation than anything, because we saw him get another concussion and look really quite abysmal after the play that he apparently got concussed on. Throwing 3 interceptions in the fourth quarter, really looking truly inefficient and kind of just throwing the game away. Now, this has become a big topic in the NFL, is this concussion awareness and really making sure that your players are safe and your players are okay. Now, we had seen previously this season, a lot of debate talking about turf, whether fields should be turf or grass, and we're seeing a lot more fields. Even within this season, we saw, I believe it was the New England Patriots had transitioned from turf to grass during the season. So that there's been a couple teams that, are starting to look to invest to make sure their players are okay. Now, this is definitely a little bit more important, I'd say, to try to keep players, mentally okay, really, really safe in the head, because that's, without a brain, what are you? You're not a human. You're just a walking zombie at this point. Now, we did see Tua, this is his second concussion of the season, and really this whole concussion topic has really come because of Tua, because of the severity of the concussions he's had, and really how scary some of them have been. Now, I'm surprised that they really haven't, monitored Tua almost, pretty consistently throughout the game. I'm surprised this hasn't been a bigger thing for them. Miami really, I guess that's one of their shortcomings is Tua's inability to stay healthy and really maintain himself. Now, granted, are concussions something that, you can try and avoid? Yes. Are they something that's totally unavoidable? No. No matter what you're gonna do, you're playing football. It's a rough sport. Concussions happen. I hate to say it, but it will probably always be a part of the game due to the fact of the violent nature of football. It just is what it is. But I don't know what they're gonna do in the future here. I'm very worried about Tua and how the NFL is going to move forward. Is the NFL going to become a weaker league where we really start seeing these really big hits? And even last week, it wasn't a big hit that caused Tua this concussion. It was really a very routine tackle of Tua, and I have a feeling that this might lead to some possible rule changes in the future, where we see the NFL become a softer and softer league that it may cause a little bit of a detriment to the viewing numbers and to the excitement factor of this game. It's going to be very interesting moving forward.
Yeah, and it's a rough spot that Miami's in right now. They don't have a playoff spot locked up, which means Tua, he's not playing this weekend, that's confirmed, but Week 18, if he's available, they're going to have to play him to try to make the playoffs most likely. It's Teddy Bridgewater is a great quarterback, but he doesn't fit the scheme of the offense.
No.
This is a very big play offense, and Teddy Bridgewater is more of a game manager, in my opinion. And I don't see this offense thriving without Tua. And Tua, in my opinion, should be shut down for the season after the second concussion. But you can't do that as the Dolphins without a playoff spot. And the miss the playoffs by one game because of this would be heartbreaking for the fans.
It would be heartbreaking for the fans. But you know what? Yeah, I think we have to look at the future for the Dolphins here. I mean, this is a team that looks pretty set up, pretty good. They have a lot of pieces that really, really are helpful to this team. And this team is very much designed for Tua. Everything about it, from the play calling, from the personnel, it's all about Tua. So, excuse me one second. Pardon me. But it's very much a Tua-centric offense. It's built and designed for Tua. So to have any other quarterback step in there, it's kind of difficult because There's not many other quarterbacks who really have been able to really fit into this type of system and this type
And
of scheme.
especially a backup that you can just sign in the offseason that can fit into a scheme like this.
Exactly. Now that's something we have seen like some teams do. We saw the Eagles, with Gardner Minshew. This really is a pretty decent scheme fit for Philadelphia and Gardner Minshew. They were able to very much operate in the same way they've had all season. More of a plug and play rather than a have to change the offense. But we'll really see what's going to happen here going forward. I mean, the Miami has two very tough games, two very tough in division games that are really going to kind of determine where their season goes against the Patriots and the Jets. And really, I mean, I have a feeling that we're going to see the Dolphins slowly fade out of the playoff picture over these next few weeks.
And yeah, I agree. They do. The New England game is a big game because I'm pretty sure the winner of that game will take the 7 seed. And Miami is very set up to beat the Patriots. They have an air attack and they don't run the football very much. In New England, their best trait is stopping the run. But now with Teddy Bridgewater, you would think that they would get more into the run game, but that's not going to be a possibility this weekend.
Over the next 2 weeks, it's gonna be very difficult. You're gonna play two teams who are very, very good at stopping the run. So it's gonna be very much reliant upon the quarterback play these next few weeks to see whether or not Miami's gonna make this playoff run.
And if Tua doesn't come back for that Week 18 game against the Jets, I don't think they make the playoffs. I think they lose both of these games outright, and the New England probably will sneak into the playoffs after all of this, surprisingly, somehow.
You know what? It's because they have Belichick. Belichick always gets it done. But, before we really start diving into this playoff picture, the wills and won'ts and what's really going to happen here, I'd like to bring up one more topic about, about this previous week, about what's going on in the NFL currently. And we're going to see Derek Carr actually be sat for the next 2 weeks. Now, this is something I'm a little surprised about, is this is a team that, isn't necessarily out of the playoff hunt. Like, I mean, I believe they're 6-9, correct?
They're 6-9. They are the 12 seed right now, and I mean, the odds of them making the playoffs are very slim. But as a fan, I would love, like, if I was a Raiders fan, I would love to see Derek Carr go out there and try to make the playoffs at 8-9. As we just said with Miami, Miami doesn't have a great look going forward for the playoffs, and it opens everything up, and it's just very surprising to see Derek Carr get benched this early.
I very much agree. And, we saw this offseason where they signed, Davante Adams. And a big part of the signing of Davante Adams was the fact that he's going to get to play with his college quarterback, Derek Carr. And I wonder how that relationship between the Raiders and Davante Adams is going to move on going forward, especially with what looks like to be the beginning of the end for Derek Carr as a Raider.
Yeah, and I have heard rumors, and I don't know how much is true to these rumors, but after seeing Derek Carr get benched, the 3-way trade that I saw where Aaron Rodgers goes to Las Vegas, Derek Carr goes to the Jets, and Zach Wilson goes to Green Bay is looking ever more possible now, because Davante Adams didn't sign there to lose games, and he wanted a quarterback that he liked, and he got it with Derek Carr, and now they're bringing his old quarterback back. That Raiders team next year, if this happens, that could be very scary.
I think it could be, but the Raiders have a long way to go, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, they're clearly I want to say them and the Texans are probably the worst two teams defensively in the entire league, and they just have nothing to show for it, absolutely nothing. But I think that's all that needs to be said about this Derek Carr situation. We most likely won't see the Raiders make the playoffs, especially as they now have Jarrett Stidham at the helm. So we'll see what happens moving forward, but I wouldn't be counting the Raiders really to counting on them to do anything moving forward. So, now it's really time to start getting into this NFL playoff picture. Now, we're not here to talk about the big bad teams, talk about the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Bills, the Chiefs, even the Bengals. We're not here to talk about these guys. These guys are surefire playoff teams. We know where they stand. We know how good they are. But this is more or less, I'd rather talk about the teams that, are on the cusp, the teams that are looking to find a way in, to really be that team that, could be an upset team, the team that can really, battle it out and get it done. And, just to make the playoffs is always a great thing. But once you get in the playoffs, it's a whole different season. It's almost a brand new season. So you never know what can happen here. Now, the first thing I'd like to start off with, we're going to start with the AFC. Now, I think it's quite interesting to see how the Jacksonville Jaguars, of all these teams, out of nowhere, they looked a little pathetic in the beginning of the season, but I don't think that's their fault. I think there's a period where you have a rookie quarterback, pretty much a rookie quarterback in his second year, but I'll call him a rookie quarterback because the Urban Meyer debacle was so great that I think that actually almost hurt the development of Trevor Lawrence, a guy who we saw come out of college with some of the highest ratings we've ever seen. It was him, Andrew Luck, and Peyton Manning were the only people that were rated as high as they were coming out of college, and we're really getting to see the development of Trevor Lawrence here, really see him step into this role. And I think Doug Peterson was a great coach for the job, and it's really helped this team move forward. And I have a hard time seeing how the Tennessee Titans are really going to be able to hold on to this lead in the AFC South. I think that's going to slip through their grasp, especially as they're going to have to most likely not play Derrick Henry this week against the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, the Titans do not have they're not ahead of the Jaguars right now. The Jaguars are ahead of the Titans, and they play each other week 18, Jaguars Titans. And this week against the Cowboys for the Titans, when the math comes down to it, this game does not matter for the Titans. They can lose this game, and all that matters is week 18 because whoever wins that game owns the tiebreaker. So Titans are resting a lot of starters like Derrick Henry most likely to get them healthy for week 18. The Titans are blowing this game tomorrow. They're not going to win this game, but if they have everyone healthy, I still think they lose, but it would be a closer battle. But I do want to disagree with the statement you said before. With the Jaguars looked really bad in the beginning of the year. I thought they looked great for the first 4 weeks. Looking back, week 1 against the Redskins, they did lose that game. That wasn't great. But then they shut out the Colts, who, yes, the Colts are bad, but still a 24-0 shutout is a good.
Hey, a shutout's still a shutout.
It's still a good win. Then they went to LA. I play the Chargers, where the Chargers probably have the worst fan base in the NFL, so it's not much of an away game, but they still blew out the Chargers, who are a playoff team, 38-10. And then in an Eagles game, in the pouring rain and the cold, they put up a good fight against an Eagles team that is well equipped for a rainy game with a good running game. And they had a great first 4 weeks. And then the Texans game where they lost, that's where they hit the midseason slump. And they went all the way downhill, and they came to life at the end of the season where it mattered the most. Big win over the Cowboys, big comeback win. But I think the Jaguars have locked up this division. I don't see Malik Willis anywhere near developed as Trevor Lawrence to win a big time game in week 18.
No, I very much agree. I think it's going to be a very hard thing to see Malik Willis here really step up. I mean, we haven't seen him step up yet. We haven't seen him really be any type of phenomenal at all. Like I would almost say that you're better off if you could have Ryan Tannehill at this point to still have him play. I mean, I know that's not obviously on the table, but I just have a hard time seeing what the Titans are going to be able to do, moving forward, especially as, the team just doesn't look as well built as they need to be. The Jaguars really do look like a better football team, and you're right, it will come down to week 18. I think that's going to be the best. That's some of the best parts about football is that, this whole season matters, but at this point, it's going to come all the way down to the end of the season. We're going to see a great battle between these two division rivals and really get to see what happens. Now, we'll keep moving down the playoff picture here. So, I apologize.
And one last thing about the Titans is that Malik Willis, as we said, he's not ready for this year. I think it's better off the Titans don't win this division. They get the higher draft pick, draft someone that could help him. And hopefully it turns into a Justin Fields situation where you can see in year 2, Fields has really taken off as a mobile quarterback, just like Malik Willis. And hopefully next year for Titans fans, he can take that jump.
No, 100%. I mean, I think something that's really dramatically hurt the Titans this year is really the loss of A.J. Brown. They have no receivers. It's hard to do anything when, it took Treylon Burks weeks and weeks and weeks to develop into anything and really to even be a semi-relevant receiver at all for this team. And, Robert Woods, yeah, has he been good in the past? Yes. But this isn't 6-7 years ago where Robert Woods is in his prime. This is old man Robert Woods. This isn't a guy who's going to be able to produce the best numbers for you. And really, I mean, I don't necessarily know if he's the best scheme fit for this team either, which doesn't help. This team just doesn't have any weapons outside of Derrick Henry really to get anything done, really to move the ball consistently up and down the field. And it's hard when you're not going to be able to move the ball in chunks at all during any type of game.
And like I said, they should probably just lose these games. Not on purpose, but it would be better off for them to lose these games, get the draft pick, and get a receiver or something to help out Malik Willis next year.
No, I could very much see that. So, now we're gonna move on to the Miami Dolphins. Now we see them sliding. They've been in a little bit of in a slump in the last couple of games. They've been having a hard time getting any type of wins. They're currently on a 4-game losing streak. And this has been a big development for Miami. I mean, I know we talked about it before with Tua and what this means going forward for this team. How Tua has meant a lot to this team, and it's going to be hard for Teddy Bridgewater to really step up. And especially with two in-division games coming up against the Patriots and the Jets, it's going to be very difficult for Miami to really make sure they secure this spot. I mean, granted, if they're able to win one game, I think it'll put them in a very good position to really make one of those wild card spots. But this team has just fallen apart the past couple weeks. They don't look like the Miami Dolphins in the beat like they did in the beginning of the season. They don't really have that spark, that flair that this team had, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And I think that's going to be a huge detriment moving forward. Really just not going to be able to see this team really flourish the same way they've had.
Yeah, and I like I said before, I don't see them beating the Patriots, and I have no idea where Tua's head is. Even if he gets cleared for Week 18, I don't know. He could just be the same Tua we saw against the Packers in the second half with 3 interceptions and just blew that game.
Oh my God, that was miserable.
I really don't know what's going to happen with the Dolphins. This, in my opinion, is the biggest question mark of a team that has a chance to make the playoffs, as they're already in the playoffs. But I really don't know what's going to happen with them.
Yeah, well, all we can do is watch and see what happens now. The next two teams we're going to talk about are also in the AFC East. We're going to talk about the New England Patriots and the New York Jets. I mean, these are two teams that are also on the cusp, really in the hunt for the playoffs here, really searching to make sure they can do something. And both teams can very much benefit from beating the Dolphins. I have a feeling that we're going to end up seeing the Patriots come out on top just because of, their team is very, it's very meh. They have a good defense. Their offense is very underwhelming. I mean, Ramondre Stevens has really been the vocal point of that entire offense. But I think there is something to be said for great coaching and Bill Belichick being Bill Belichick. I think that really does help move this team forward and propel them into a potential spot where, they can actually do something. And I really do like the New England Patriots over the Jets. That's personally going to be my pick out of the three teams to make sure they secure a wild card spot between the Dolphins, the Jets, and New England. I think New England, no matter what, I think they're the team that's going to lock up a nice little wild card spot in the next 2 weeks.
I agree. If Tua was healthy, Miami locks this up easily, and Miami's the team you want to see in the playoffs because Tua will be healthy by the time playoffs come. But with 2 weeks left, I think New England has it locked up. And if you want to talk about boring football, I don't know if you know this, but the Patriots offense have scored 156 points this year. And the Patriots kickers and defense have scored 154 points this year.
Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. They play the most boring brand of football. But you know what? Sometimes you can't be boring because it helps get the job done. That's all you got to do. As long as you're getting the job done, hey, whatever works, works. You can't beat that. But, I wish the Jets were a better team. I wish their quarterback situation was a little bit more ironed out. It just, their quarterback situation is an absolute mess. Zach Wilson is not going to be a quarterback moving forward. I mean, he has been disastrously bad. Unbelievably bad. I mean, the guy literally couldn't hit the blind side of a barn if he wanted to. He could barely move the ball 3 yards in a play. I mean, Jesus, he is one of the worst quarterbacks I've watched in a long time. And, I feel bad that he's getting these Jamarcus Russell, comparisons, but this is a guy I would like to see play a little bit more football. I think maybe a different team, a different atmosphere might help him. But granted, this is a guy who really only got picked because of having a phenomenal pro day, really showing out at BYU. But this is a guy who, I don't think he was a top 3 pick. I don't think he was a top 10 pick. I think this is like another type of Daniel Jones-esque move for another New York franchise to really, try to take this quarterback that, quote unquote, is spectacular, but obviously hasn't had much to show in the NFL this season.
And like I said before, I would love to see Zach Wilson go to Green Bay, have a quarterback competition with Jordan Love, have both of those young guys, even though Jordan Love's been in the league for a little while, have both of those young guys go out there in training camp and have a battle, because Aaron Rodgers is not going to be there long term, and the roster is not set up for the Packers right now to have an old quarterback. They need to hit the reset button in the next 2 years and to have a quarterback battle with both players. Jordan Love, his contract ends soon, but they would have years on Zach Wilson to see if they can get anything out of him.
Yeah, to see if he's going to be at least anything. Because, granted, if they're able to bring him in, I mean, I don't think he'll start over Jordan Love. I think Jordan Love definitely, when he played against Philadelphia when Aaron Rodgers had left the game, Jordan Love did look pretty decent. He looks like he's going to be the quarterback moving forward for the Packers as long as they're able to get rid of Aaron Rodgers. Granted, who the hell knows what's going to happen with that? It's going to be some dramatic, absolutely ridiculous show this offseason where we see the will they, won't they, where is he going to go? Is he going to go anywhere? I guarantee it'll be a giant mess no matter what.
But I agree. I think Jordan Love would easily start over him. But to have both quarterbacks push each other to be their best to try to win that starting job, and for Zach Wilson to get out of a New York franchise would probably be the best for him because the fans are tough in New York and he's not built for it.
No, and when you play like that, they'll boo you right out of New York too. They don't give a damn. So we're gonna move on here. Really, we're gonna talk about the Steelers. This has been a team that we haven't seen really have a losing season under Mike Tomlin ever. This could potentially be his first losing season as they're a 7-8 ball club. They're really able to they look like as of late they've been getting the job done. Granted, they're gonna have to play two tough in division games. They're gonna have to go play the Ravens and then play the Browns. I think the Browns is an easy game for them. I think Kenny Pickett's really picked it up as of late. They've looked a lot better, but it's going to really come down to whether or not they can beat the Ravens in this game. And the Ravens, it's a very winnable game. The Ravens are a team that plays down to competition consistently. That has been a big theme for them all season long. We've seen them consistently play to the exact level of their opponents and keep these games close. So I have a feeling that we're going to end up seeing the Steelers really be able to secure a playoff spot and actually end up with a winning record. I think we won't see a Mike Tomlin losing season yet, and this is a guy. Mike Tomlin. He's putting his head coaching name on the all-time record books here. He's really truly been special for the Steelers franchise, and they finally found their Bill Belichick-esque coach. So they're gonna get it. I think they're gonna get it done and move on to the playoffs. Granted, will it be an unexciting playoff game when they get in there? Yes, but I think they're gonna be able to do it in the end.
I mean, I disagree with that because the Ravens already beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh, and they didn't have Lamar Jackson. And to go and beat the Steelers at home, and now 3 weeks later you come back and you have a home game with possibly Lamar Jackson coming back. I think the writing's on the walls for the Steelers. Honestly, in the AFC, Miami's the only team that deserves to be in the playoffs, and I think that seeds 8 through 12, none of those teams actually deserve to be in the playoffs because they're just going to get killed by the Chiefs.
Yeah, granted, no matter what happens, they're the top dogs in the AFC. The AFC is a very top-heavy division. I think we're really going to see these top-heavy teams just really wax the unbelievable hell out of some of these lower-level competition teams. Just because it's crazy. I don't think we've seen such a vast skill gap in the NFL in a long time where a lot of these teams are just absolutely waxing the other team. Really, really taking control of these games from the get-go and not letting go.
And it's surprising because in both divisions, seeds 1, 2, 3, and 5 are the best teams. And I can easily see all those seeds in both sides of the conferences winning these games. I don't think the 4 seeds are going to put up much of a fight.
No, I very much agree. So, obviously the only other team that we really in the AFC picture could even make the playoffs is the Raiders. But, with the benching of Derek Carr, it doesn't look like it's going to go anywhere. This is a very underwhelming team, a very underwhelming franchise at this point. They haven't been able to really secure anything during Derek Carr's stint in what's called in Raiderland. So we'll have to see what's going to happen moving forward. Obviously, I don't believe he's going to be on the team next year. I think it's going to be a very interesting situation with Davante Adams. What's going to happen? Who's their new quarterback? What this team is going to look like next year? But I think this Raiders season is all but over.
It's 100% over, and they're giving up early. They're going for the draft pick, which is
I can't blame them.
I can't blame them either, but it does put a bad look on the franchise.
It does. They're just a franchise with too many holes that need to be filled, and they're not going to be able to do it at this point. So now we're going to move on to the NFC. We'll start really taking apart that playoff picture. Now I think first off we have to start in the NFC South. The NFC South has been a very underwhelming division this year. We've seen Tom Brady really just kind of be the worst version of Tom Brady ever. This is the first time that he's looked defeatable. He's looked like a quarterback that really isn't necessarily he doesn't look like the greatest quarterback of all time anymore. Has age finally caught up to him? I think it has, and I think we're gonna end up seeing this team slowly crumble come these next couple weeks. Now, granted, as a Tom Brady truther, I would love to see them really take the reins here and really be able to make this playoff push. Granted, they are a game up in their division. They do have to take on 2 in-division teams in the Panthers and the Falcons. Now, if they're able to beat the Panthers, I think they'll all but walk into the playoffs because I have a hard time seeing how the Saints are gonna really be able to beat Philadelphia. I don't think that's gonna happen regardless of quarterback situation coming up here. So I actually what I do think the Bucks are going to make the playoffs. I think the Bucks will end up winning this division. Now, granted, I think they're going to be I think they might be the most underwhelming playoff team. I think they're going to be the team that has the least spark, the least flair, and that's even being said with New England making the playoffs. I think New England might have a better chance at winning a game than the Bucks will.
You can never count Tom out though, but his age has definitely caught up with him this season. He's missing the easy throws, just like Aaron Rodgers. It's great for NFC East fans like we are to see these two fail, but for the whole NFL to see two of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play start to show their age and show that they can't carry a team anymore. It is going to be it's a new NFL era that we're in.
Yes.
Next season we're going to see it, even though Tom Brady says he has no plans to retire.
Yeah, we'll see what that means. We'll truly, only God knows what's going to happen. But I really do think it's a very interesting point you just brought up. I mean, this has been a one of the greatest quarterback eras I think of all time. We've really seen some of the greatest quarterbacks ever, step up to the stage and really be longtime mainstays in the league. These are guys who are on the top of all the record books. They've been able to lead their teams to winning season after winning season after winning season, and Super Bowl on top of Super Bowl on top of Super Bowl, and really to see these quarterbacks kind of fall from grace at this point at their elder age, it's a sad thing to see. But you're right, it's truly a new NFL. We're seeing a different age of quarterback being ushered into the league, a very different type of quarterback being ushered into the league, because this standard pocket passer, I don't think it's going to work in the way, in the direction the NFL is moving anymore.
And I agree. And there's 5 quarterbacks left in that era, and all of them are bad. Matt Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady,
Matt
Ryan, and
who are we missing here? Who are we missing? It's actually
now I can't find it, but I just had it. Oh, did I say Russell Wilson?
Oh no, you didn't. There
Russell Wilson.
No, you're right though.
All 5. They're exiting their prime, and all their careers are basically over. And now it's time for the new quarterbacks to step up and take over the league.
You know what? I don't necessarily agree that they're all over. I think if out of all of them, I think we'll see Aaron Rodgers have a little bit of a late career resurgence. I think this is a guy coming off back-to-back MVPs, so that is something that we do need to account for. But otherwise, I think all these other quarterbacks have kind of fallen from grace, and especially Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson has looked unbelievably bad, unbelievably efficient. So we'll have to see what's going to happen here moving forward. But now, we'll get to our next set in the what's it called? Our next team here in the playoff picture. So now, let's talk about the New York Giants. Kyle, do you have anything you'd like to say about the Giants?
I don't even know where to start with the Giants. It's just like, even with their next team, the Redskins, they're both 2 teams where I don't know what the strong suit of the team is. Now with the Giants, I guess you could say it's
Saquon.
It's Saquon, but Saquon is having a comeback year. He's in the comeback player of the year conversation. But the Giants are not one of the most efficient running teams in the league. And I will say this, the NFC East was blessed with an easy schedule this year. And I think that's one of the main reasons we're seeing the Giants and Washington in the playoffs as you look down the list. And I do think there's other teams that are more deserving of that spot, like Seattle and Green Bay.
You know what? I very much agree. I think we've seen a lot of other teams play very, very well. But come late in this season, these NFC East teams, they've had kind of a cakewalk season with their schedule. They've had a rather easy schedule. But something that I've always said, and something, at least, I as an Eagles fan, I hate to do it to you, but I love to bring up 2017 because I see a lot of parallels between this season and that season. I see a very easy schedule for this division. And a big thing that I've always really seriously considered to be a good team is that you're able to win the easy games. If you're able to win the easy games, it means your team is getting the job done. Getting the job done is the utmost, most important thing you can do. Because, it's a obviously big New England saying is, do your job. Now, if you're able to do your job week in, week out, regardless of schedule, and get the games, get the games won and do your job, I think there's something to be said for that. Now, the Giants team, their receiving core is abysmal. The fact that Isaiah Hodgins is their number 1 receiver is really, really a detriment to this team, and it's sad to say that this is where their receiving core is at. A receiving core that was seemingly quite star-studded a few years ago and looked very promising with a young Sterling Shepard and a young Odell Beckham. I mean, this was a team that looked very promising moving forward and is all but collapsed in the past couple of years with their star-studded talent. Now, there is something to be said for this Giants defense. We've seen guys like Dexter Lawrence on that defensive line be unbelievable threats to every team they play. That defensive line is disruptive, it's strong, it's powerful, and I think that's really one of the Giants' biggest strengths is the fact that they're able to command that line. And we've seen if you're able to win the game in the trenches, it makes the rest of the game that much easier. Now, will the Giants make the playoffs? I actually think they will. I actually think that they're going to be a team that makes the playoffs, and I think we're gonna see the Washington Commanders end up losing their playoff spot. I have a hard time seeing how they're gonna maintain their grasp over this, especially with Carson Wentz coming in this week. He's been all but abysmal. But if I do have anything to say about Carson Wentz is that he loves Jahan Dotson. If you have him in any league, you should play him because I guarantee you he's going to score a touchdown with at least 50, 60 yards. This is like he I don't know why he loves Jahan Dotson so much out of, Terry McLaurin and what's called also having Curtis Samuel there, especially with the running backs they have. But I think the Washington Commanders, the writing's on the wall for them. I think it's all but over, even though they do currently have the last wild card spot.
And I think the Giants easily get in. They play the Colts, who look abysmal. They're going to win that game. And then you go to week 18, and if the Eagles take care of business this week, they're going to be resting all their starters week 18. So they should easily be able to beat the Eagles. 2 wins. Somehow you get a Giants team that wins 10 games this year. I think they easily lock up that 6th seed. And who they play, I don't know yet, but
We'll have to see how it shakes out.
I think the Giants are definitely in.
So, obviously we don't think the Commanders are going to be there. We think the Giants are going to do something special. Now, we do have a couple teams here that really look like they're a pretty strong contender to make this playoff push, and it's between 3 teams. We have the Seattle Seahawks, the Detroit Lions, and the Green Bay Packers. Now, like I said before, I think it's a hard thing to do to count out Aaron Rodgers. I really think that out of all these teams, as much as I have slandered Green Bay and I don't like them, I just have a hard time seeing them, fall apart in this late season. Rodgers has really done a great job in division, no matter what season is, just making sure he wins those late season games, especially against his division. We're gonna see him play the Vikings next week, a team who really at any moment's notice can absolutely just fall apart. And we're also gonna see him take on the Detroit Lions, and I think these next 2 weeks are really gonna determine where these teams go. But I think out of all 3 teams, I think we're gonna end up seeing the Green Bay Packers take this final spot.
I definitely agree, and that I did want to bring that up a point that this week I did make a bet on a team to make the playoffs, and that is the Packers. They're at plus 200 to make the playoffs right now, and I think that's great value there. They get the Vikings at home, and the Vikings are frauds. And to go outside in the cold weather, I don't think the Vikings can really play an outdoor game on the road in Green Bay. And with the Packers team that's been heating up, they've been winning games. To look back, they have 3 wins in a row. And I think it's all coming together now. And I think this game does have a lot riding on Christian Watson's hip injury, if he can get out there, because this offense looks completely different without Christian Watson.
Very much so. I mean, we've really seen him ever since he's been healthy really actually start to be a true threat for this Green Bay team and really, help them get those chunk plays, move the ball up and down the field at an efficient pace. And, obviously their other receivers like Lazard and Dobbs have been supplemental pieces, but nothing more than supplemental. They haven't been the greatest contributors on a consistent week-to-week basis. Obviously, Lazard more so than Dobbs and some of the other receivers. But, I have a hard time seeing how this well-established Packers team with a strong coaching staff and really the most important thing on an NFL field is your quarterback. And out of all 3 of these teams, they have the most accomplished, the strongest, the best quarterback left, and I think that he alone is going to help propel this team into the playoffs. Granted, though, I think it's important to look at the Seattle Seahawks, a team that has a Pro Bowl quarterback in Geno Smith, a guy who's had a late career resurgence and really has looked significantly better this year. Granted, I don't know if I can believe in the Seattle Seahawks. It's a very odd team to me. Now, do they play I apologize, folks. I accidentally clicked on the wrong schedule. So, they come up and they play the Jets, and I think that's going to be an iffy game, a little bit wishy-washy, and then they have to play the Rams. I think they can get it done, but I think it's going to be difficult. I think we're gonna see what this Seahawks team is made of, and if they're able to make the playoffs, I think they could be a potential threat, more so than people think. I think they're a stronger team than people remember, a stronger team than people have expected, And the fact that, Geno Smith has been written off all season long, the entire team has been written off all season long. I think this is a team that's got a little bit of that dog in them, got a little bit of, a little bit of fire lit underneath their ass, and I think they're about ready to go in all but spring. But I think it really does come down to see whether or not the Packers are going to make this strong playoff push.
I think the Packers are going to win out. I think the biggest problem for the Packers getting in is Seattle, like you said. Geno Smith, he played really bad against the Chiefs, and that's a big red flag because the Chiefs are not a good defensive team.
Not at all.
And to see that is very concerning. Now, the good thing is for this the Seahawks is that they do have a very easy schedule. I think they beat the Jets. There's just too much going on with the Jets right now that they're not going to be focused. And then the last week they have the Rams, who they should easily beat, but we see Baker Mayfield come out and put up 50 points. So
And
I don't
somehow
know.
do un-Baker-esque things.
That game could go either way. And Seattle does, yeah, like I said, they have the tiebreaker, but Geno Smith playing this bad late in the season, it's defenses are figuring him out. I think he had that really strong first half because there hasn't been film on him in 10 years. So,
You know what? I do agree that film factor actually does take a big effect, and I think we saw that. I hate to do it to you again, but I'm going to bring up the 2017 Eagles, and I think that's the only reason why we ended up beating the Patriots is just the lack of film that was on Nick Foles and really the ability to game plan for a guy like that. Now, as the seasons progress, it's really been a big understanding for teams to kind of focus on Geno Smith and understand his play style and how he plays, how he operates. And the more tape you have, the more film you have, the more you're able to study your tendencies and how this guy operates. I think it's actually going to be a detriment to the Seahawks more than it is going to be an advantage.
I do just want to remind you that if Tom Brady didn't drop that pass, that's a whole different game.
Well, you know what? That's old man Tom Brady right
Yes,
there.
that is.
That's why he didn't catch that pass. He's not as athletic as he once was. But hey,
He was
I'll
never
still take
athletic.
it. Very
Let's just
true.
start
Very
there.
true. But I'll still take it. That was probably the greatest season I've ever had, and I'm glad I got to see it. But I think Seattle's really gonna, I think they're the other team that can really do it. I don't really see the Detroit Lions doing it. Now, granted, this has been one of the most exciting offenses in football. The Detroit Lions, even though they're headed by Jared Goff, has been able to put up probably the most exciting offense on a week-to-week basis, making sure they consistently score points, and not even consistently score points, but that they play hard as hell. This is a team that just has that dog mentality. I mean, Dan Campbell, MCDC, regardless of where they finish this season, I think he has to be a head coach of the year candidate for where he's taken this team, the way he's changed the culture, and how much better the Lions look on a week-to-week basis. They don't look like a team that's just sad and defeated anymore. They actually look like they go into these games like with the attitude that they own the game, that they're gonna win this game, that they're the best team on the planet. You know what? That's the attitude they need to have moving forward, especially with the next couple seasons coming around, especially as Dan Campbell is gonna be retained as head coach. We've seen the success he's been able to bring to this franchise with a quarterback like Jared Goff, and how special this offense has really been able to become, and their defense is slowly becoming a good unit. I really do like what the Lions have cooking, but I don't think that their meal is ready yet. I think we're going to see that next season. I really think we're going to see this Lions team explode. But this year, especially with Green Bay and Green Bay in the rafters, I have a hard time seeing them beat Green Bay Week 18. Especially, that game's just going to be difficult because it's in Green Bay. You're telling me Week 18 against the Detroit Lions, Aaron Rodgers isn't going to say that he fucking owns them? I guarantee you, you know what? You heard it here first. I hope to God he does it, but I think he's gonna bring back the discount double check just to let him know I own you, Detroit. Same way he owns the Chicago Bears.
And I agree with all of that. And the Week 18, it's after looking at the schedules, there's two games that matter Week 18 for people getting into the playoffs, and that's Jacksonville Titans. Winner of that game gets in as the division winner, and honestly, I don't think Seattle and Washington are going to do it, and it's going to come down to Detroit versus Green Bay, and the winner of that game gets in. And like you said, I don't see how Detroit can win at Green Bay in Week 18.
It's going to be a very difficult game, but you know what? They're a team that can do it. They got that dog in them, and MCDC, they have the Dan Campbell mentality, baby, and that's the right type of mentality to have moving forward, especially for a Detroit team that's looked very defeated for the past, for almost our entire lifetime, I would say. I mean, what? Besides the 1 year where Calvin Johnson and Matt Stafford somehow magically carried that team into the playoffs, where they ended up losing to Dallas on a what I would call a BS pass interference on Brandon Pettigrew. But hey, a win's a win regardless. So, I think it'll be interesting moving forward.
So it does sound like we both agree that in the AFC, Jacksonville takes the division and New England gets the 7 seed. And then going to the NFC, Tampa Bay takes the 4 seed, the Giants take the 6 seed, and the Packers take the 7 seed.
You know what? I think that sounds about right. I really do. I just have a hard time seeing how this Redskins team with all their quarterback questions is going to really be able to do it. And same thing with the Jets. The Jets are a team I like, and I wanna root for them. But just the constant quarterback issues they've had is really, I think, what's going to lead to their demise this year.
And you can't win football games by constantly changing your quarterbacks. Each quarterback is a different release timing, and you don't have enough practice reps within 1 week to get readjusted back to your old quarterback. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the main factor why those two teams will not make the playoffs.
But you know what though, the one thing I will give the Jets, and I'll say this right before we wrap it up. I think that Mike White, I don't think there's any other quarterback in the league that their team plays harder for than Mike White. I think Mike, as silly as that may sound, I think Mike White lights a fire underneath this Jets team in a very different way than many other quarterbacks are able to do for their team. And this is a guy who was a 6th-round pick. He wasn't meant to be anything, but obviously the team loves him, the team respects him, and they think that if he's playing, they think they have a chance. They know they have a chance. And do they really have a chance? I don't think they do. But I think if anyone's going to be able to do it for this team, they're going to need to have Mike White healthy, have him on the field, and have him playing at top form.
And it's the same thing as Detroit. And they gave Jared Goff a second chance, this team. They play hard for Jared Goff, where the last year Detroit Lions did not. And they just accepted that Jared Goff was not going to be anything. And they just let the season go the waste. But those two teams, the team plays hard for the quarterbacks, but I think you're right, and I don't think it's enough to get them into the playoffs this year. I think next year they both sneak in as wild card teams, 6, 7 seeds, but they need more help. They need free agency. They need the draft.
Very much so, and we'll see what's going to happen here this offseason. But I think this NFL playoff picture is going to look pretty freaking sweet coming up. There's nothing better than some NFL playoffs in my book. There's no better time of the year. This is the best sport on the planet where the highest competition gets to play. We're really going to get to see some great football. And hell, between you and me, between the Cowboys and the Eagles, I guarantee you we're going to have one hell of a fucking playoff game. And I can't wait to see it.
And I agree. But that's going to be a hell of a game. But I do want to say this. As much as fans like that 7 seed to see an extra team get in, maybe your team sneaks in as a 7 seed and you would never made the playoffs, I do think it makes the playoffs a little bit worse because those 7 seeds, looking at it this year, they're not great. And yes, maybe Green Bay, as at the standings stay, if they sneak in, I think they have a chance. But going back up to the AFC, like I said before, besides a healthy Dolphins team, every one of those teams is going to get blown out by the Chiefs.
Yeah, and they will lose in the first round. There's no question about it.
It's just going to hurt Kansas City's chances for injury. If Mahomes gets injured in that game, that's a blowout. Then it's like, why were we even playing this game in the first place?
You know what? The more I think about it, and I actually kind of agree with you on this case. I don't think the extra playoff spot is really going to be helpful moving forward.
It's TV revenue. That's all it is.
It is. But we'll have to see how it shakes out come playoff time. Now, Kyle, I really want to thank you for coming on the Idiots podcast. Obviously, you're a new member to the Idiots crew. We'd all like to thank you. We really appreciate you having you on. Is there anything you'd like to say before we wrap this bad boy up?
No, nothing besides let's go Cowboys.
Oh, that one hurt the soul. So thank you so much. Thank you to the listeners. We really appreciate you coming back each and every week. Every time we post now. Over these next couple weeks, you're going to see a little bit more consistency, a little bit more posts. It's just been it's been a little bit of a hectic time. I hope everyone's had a great time with their family, really been able to take advantage of this time and enjoy themselves, do the things they need to do, and just, live a good life. Now, from your host, Idiot, I'd really like to appreciate you guys, and say thank you so much, especially around this holiday season. So, thank you so much. Go Birds.